Welcome back to West Texas View.
There's been a lot in the news lately about postpartum depression surrounding Princess Kate. When she had little William, she had a very public postpartum depression. And you had mentioned this when you were on before about how prevalent it could be. And I had several calls about that. So could we talk a little bit more about that?
Thank you so much for bringing up this topic. This is an extremely important topic, and a lot of times it gets missed, resulting in mother being the center of family, and a new mother with a newborn child. It's extremely important that we keep the mother very healthy, both physically and emotionally. And one of the major things that women go through after a childbirth is one of the possibilities is postpartum depression. Let me explain what I'm talking about here. Now, most women, when they go through childbirth, depending on the complexities and what they go through, can go through a three-tier of experience emotionally. One is like postpartum blues, like just having a childbirth, be it tiredness, be it hormonal changes, or any obstetric complications, kind of postpartum blues as they have it. Can they feel a little bit tearfulness, a little bit sadness are there, a little bit moodiness are there, but they're able to cope with the major job obligations, including have a fairly good family relationship, mood-wise they're okay, and most importantly, are able to take care of the newborn, right?
Yeah.
The second,
and as I said, work your way past that.
Right, exactly, and that's fairly common. Postpartum blues are fairly common. The next tier, next severity in the line is postpartum depression, where women can have all the above, as we just talked about, and much more severe to that. For example, they may have excessive tearfulness, have excessive trouble with sleep, have such a degree of sadness that they're not able to take care of the young ones. Taking care of the young one, the newborn infant, can be overwhelming to the point that they feel completely incapacitated to do anything with the child. They shun from their everyday activities, be household care, or attending to children, other children in the family, their husband, and if they're working, they cannot function. So that's postpartum depression. Now, much rarer, about 0.5 to 0.1% cases, is what we call the most severe one, that we call postpartum psychosis. That means some women can become psychotic. That means they hear voices, become paranoid, and maybe delusional, as we can call it. And that's a very, very dangerous situation. We do remember the Andrea Yates case, which happened about 10 years ago, in which sadly all children died, were actually murdered by the mother, who was under the influence, had a very delusional condition at the time, hallucinating.
And had been a really good mother.
A very good mother, very good mother, unless she had.
There was no big problems like financial problems,
no
or
stresses,
anything like
just
that.
the stress of childbirth. And do remember the fact that these women, there's some genetic predisposition also. Also, there are some risk factors are there. For example, these women who have been pre-exposed to previous pregnancy may have mild depression, are more susceptible to develop a much severe form of postpartum depression as the pregnancy
baby comes.
Remember, she had five kids, and the most problem happened when she had the sixth one, when she had completely significant distress during those times. So that's postpartum psychosis. We applied for some grant funding, the Texas Tech Department of Psychiatry in Permian Basin. We got some federal grants about it, significant amount of money to address this issue. So we are planning to reach out all the OBGYN physicians, all the ER physicians, anywhere that we can get hold of mothers struggling with postpartum depression, and provide them with help, psychiatric help, mostly in the form of support, counseling, group intervention, that means group therapy, and the ones who are really bad, who qualify for much more intensive intervention, medication-wise, and in rare cases, even if they need hospitalization, we want to make sure that they get the right help and that everybody's safe. We recently hired a social worker. The Department of Psychiatry hired a social worker, and we're going to be rolling out that plan to address and reach out to the community. In fact, through your program, one of the reasons I'm here is to see that if anybody, you guys know anybody who's struggling with postpartum depression, which we typically define as having within the 4 weeks, well, actually 2 weeks of onset of childbirth. But more literature suggests that it may happen even a month or even 2 months after the childbirth. So to contact us, we approach us and not just push it away as something, as you mentioned, just go through it. It doesn't have to be so difficult, doesn't have to be so miserable. Help is available. We now have much better understanding towards it, and we can address it much effectively.
Well, so am I hearing you correctly that you don't have signs before you have the baby?
Well, the answer to that is yes and no. Now, many of the women tend to have, as I said, previous history of postpartum depression, have a complicated course of pregnancy, and if they have previous history of depression, which is more likely, the depression actually gets worse during the pregnancy.
Okay.
So, if you are having significant problems, then the chances of having postpartum pregnancy is much higher. But there have been cases where it comes out of the blue, with nothing doing, and it's more difficult to realize. For example, the example you gave, Kate, the princess, her first baby, no information regarding she ever struggled with depression before pregnancy. Of course, it's a royal society, so they won't advertise it. But it's possible that she may not have it or may have it. But as far as we know, she never had any depression.
Or had any in her genetics or her genetic makeup.
Right. So it may come out of the blue, but you're more susceptible to it if you have previous history of depression, previous history of...
Well, I'm really, really interested in this grant that you're talking about, because you're talking about all over the whole Permian Basin, anybody in our viewing audience
anybody
that knows someone that's having some real struggles, or maybe yourself that is having some kind of struggles. A lot of times I've known husbands who knew something was wrong, but they didn't have the terminology to know postpartum depression. They just knew that things were not right. But they didn't know what to do. And some of these people that live in our outlying areas that don't have as much access to medical facilities may not even know who to go to. And so you're saying that they should contact your office, because then you've got a team through this grant that will help them.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. I may share, if I have a minute, I may share that there's some recent literature has suggested that even men may have postpartum depression, even though they don't get the father.
Let's hold that just a minute. We've got to take a break. We'll be back in just a second, and he'll talk about men's postpartum depression. See you in just a minute.
Stay tuned. West Texas View will be right back.